views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Save the Second or their employers. This show offers commentary on the latest news associated with the NRA and Save the Second's endeavor to promote a strong, relevant, effective, and accountable NRA. Save the Second is a pro-Second Amendment organization. Through good or bad, we're here to help drive and save the NRA from itself and the Second from the infighting that happens among the Second Amendment supporters. Because without the Second, the rest will fall.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Save the Second podcast. Today is Sunday, November 3rd, 2019. In this episode, we'll discuss Ackerman McQueen's counterclaim, another NRA director resigns, yesterday's Second Amendment rally in Washington, D.C., and how you can be involved. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. For us at Save the Second, loving, honoring, and personally upholding the Second Amendment is who we are. Reforming the NRA is what we do. Second Amendment supporters need the NRA to be at its best right now. Not next week, not next year, not in 2021. Now, obviously, the NRA is far from its best. The NRA is in a discouraging and horrifying state currently. It's terrible. Oh my gosh. We can talk about that later, right? The reforms that need to happen will not happen without your help. You must be involved. You must be engaged. In order for the NRA to be strong, relevant, effective, and accountable, we must reform the NRA leadership, the bylaws, reduce the amount of absurd, wasteful expenditures, and refocus the NRA on the primary task of providing firearms training and education and protecting the Second Amendment. It is not what the Second Amendment can do for you. It's what you can do for your Second Amendment. Similarly, it's not what the NRA can do for you. It's what you can do for your NRA. We at Save the Second are all volunteers. My name is Ron Carter, and I'm the Vice President of Save the Second. I am joined today by a man who spoke with such eloquence, our President, Save the Second President, Anthony Garcia. My goodness gracious, Anthony, how are you?
I'm good. I think you're a little too generous. I don't know how eloquent I am. Passionate, perhaps, but not eloquent.
Well, I loved it, man. And hey, you know what? The crowd was especially, hey, they came to life when you started talking about reforming the NRA, which, wow, I mean, that was not expected. That was really interesting. And we'll have that video up on YouTube. You can currently watch that on our Facebook page. Anthony and I we went together to DC, and then we came back home last night. Anthony, we were supposed to fall back, right? You know, it's daylight savings. Did you get any sleep last night?
Yeah, no, I was fine. The time change never affects me, but I don't know. Judging from the sound of your voice, it screwed you up pretty good.
Oh man, it's messing with me. Well, I was so pumped. I mean, just seeing everybody and shaking everybody's hands and being ridiculously sore for standing for hours on end with a pretty heavy backpack.
Yeah,
oh man.
My feet are killing me today. I think I was standing out there for about 6.5, 7 hours, which I'm not used to doing. I'm a truck driver in my other life, so there are plenty of people that are used to doing that, and they're fine. I'm not. My feet are sore.
Oh yeah, I could tell that my days of humping a rucksack, they're well behind me, man. I was feeling it.
Oh yeah.
Oh buddy,
too old for that.
It was so much fun, though. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, and you gave that speech in front of thousands of people. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show, a little bit more in depth and whatnot. But our very first story is Ackerman McQueen's counterclaim that was released this past week. Did you see that, Anthony? I mean, there's a lot to that.
Yeah, so this counterclaim is really, really interesting. I don't know if did you want to read any part of this for the audience?
Oh my gosh, I think the whole thing would be interesting, but maybe a paragraph. Which paragraph can we condense down for him to read?
Um, so I mean, this thing we're just gonna have to post this on our page. If you want to do that, go for it. Basically, here I'll kind of lay out the scenario. Ackerman McQueen here is responding to it was one of the latest filings from the NRA. But basically, what's going on is each side is positioning themselves to the furthest extreme for their story, right? Okay, so your lawyer in any lawsuit, their job is to make you sound as good as they can, which is understandable. That's what you want your lawyer to do. And no more is that more on display. Nowhere is that more on display than Ackerman McQueen and the NRA. And Ron's going to post that, and you can have a look at that if you haven't seen it yet. It's basically these two sides are just as extreme and far apart as you can possibly imagine. A lot of the time, I believe the truth is somewhere in the middle of two stories. Exactly where it falls may change depending on the story, but it is quite obvious that A, both sides are guilty, and B, I don't think I think both sides are leveling accusations that probably aren't entirely true, but both sides are very guilty in this thing. And it's interesting to see the stories they come out with. I don't know if you got that posted there, Ron.
Not quite.
Okay.
It's just so much. I tell you what, folks. Let me just read just
Here,
a quick paragraph. How about that?
I'll read through it if you want.
Hey, I tell you what. Take it from the membership is being misled, because that's essentially what we've been saying. And now Ackerman McQueen is echoing us, but they're echoing it from a position of firsthand knowledge, or at least what their lawyer perceives to be as firsthand knowledge. And this is something that you're not going to hear from the NRA. In fact, if you go to nralegalfacts.org, their new website, the NRA's new website, to chronicle the, I don't know, are we in the 20s now of lawsuits? The tens of lawsuits, the 20s of lawsuits. I don't know. I mean, we've got so many lawsuits that it's hard to keep track. They had to build a website for all of their lawsuits. Okay. And while I would be really happy if these were lawsuits that pertain to the Second Amendment, no, these are lawsuits that pertain to frivolous, he said, she said, we're suing them for money. For example, we mentioned Oliver North in a couple shows back, and how there's the NRA is suing Oliver North, who was previously the most highest voted for candidate in last year's NRA director election. And there's 3 lawsuits now with Ackerman McQueen. Anthony, why don't you read the quote from Ackerman McQueen, and the membership is being misled.
Yeah, this is interesting. All right, so this is Ackerman McQueen responding to the NRA, saying the membership is being misled. The NRA is pouring tens of millions of nonprofit funds into lawyers and lawsuits to cover up the abject failure of executive and board leadership. They continue to contrive allegations that they are not currently proving, and will continue to not be able to prove in any legal setting. Instead, they grovel at the feet of the media they used to decry, hoping to create some spin for Wayne LaPierre. Now that paragraph, it's unusually aggressive from a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's ironic because, they're trying to create some sort of spin. For example, in Pennsylvania, what was it? Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, and a couple other entities with Josh Prince was able to have some of the Pittsburgh ridiculous rules on magazine bans and whatnot struck down. And that was this past week. And then the NRA, I always like, hey guys, we did that. Yeah, we're going to spin it this way. Yeah, and I don't think they had a part at all in it, yet they were taking credit for it.
So here's another part of this. LaPierre, when they came out yesterday, or I think it was last week with their statement, LaPierre was saying that he had no control over NRA TV and that it was racist. And they were talking about the Ku Klux Klan hoods on the Thomas the Tank Engine picture, which of course, and you can just go Google search. It's hilarious if you haven't seen it. And LaPierre claimed he had no idea about any of this whatsoever. And here's Ackerman McQueen's response back to that. LaPierre controlled every aspect of NRA TV, for which he recruited talent, approved every budget, audited every metric, and required ultimate confidentiality. Ackerman McQueen routinely offered, and toward the end of the relationship demanded, that an outside firm audit NRA TV performance, but LaPierre refused. Unlike the NRA, ACMAC welcomes full transparency. LaPierre's apparent paranoia and lust for secrecy fed his justification for private air travel, luxury hotels, and countless other expenses for himself, his family, and friends that were all paid by member dues. Now, I don't entirely believe what they're saying here, that LaPierre was 100% in control. I don't believe that. I do believe that's their spin on it, but I also don't believe LaPierre in saying he had no say in it whatsoever. He surely did. That's why I say I think this is in the middle of two stories. I think both of them are guilty in this thing, and they're both just tossing mud and pointing blame at this point.
Right. So, I mean, let's look at it from just a step back, from just objectivity. If Wayne LaPierre and the NRA and Brewer counselors, lawyers, and whatnot, their legal representation, if they're all telling the truth, that these things happened, that Ackerman McQueen was so terrible and trying to overthrow Wayne LaPierre and the NRA. Okay, let's assume that's true. They allowed it to happen. I mean, this is not some like overthrow that happened overnight. This is years. Ackerman McQueen spent over 32 years, as the NRA's ad agency. I mean, that just doesn't. You think he would have had some foresight, especially if LaPierre had any sort of influence in the matter, or perhaps competition. If you have just one ad agency that's calling all the shots, that's a problem. There's no competition. There's no question on who can do a better job, right? I mean, most companies will have a plethora of advertising agencies. They're not going to have just one. They'll have their internal guys, but they'll also, reach out to other firms to try to get the most bang for their buck. And we've seen essentially the opposite from the NRA in every shape, form, and fashion. I mean, they're just throwing money. I mean, look at Kerryguard, the multi-million-dollar disaster, right? Yeah, I am tempted to absolutely believe Ackerman McQueen here. I really am. I really don't believe the spin that the NRA legal team is trying to put on this, especially with having created a website that's devoted to try to justify their legal handlings. I mean, it's like pure propaganda. Oh, yeah. What do you think? Is it pure propaganda, Anthony?
You mean their legal facts website?
Right.
Well, yeah, I think everything they're putting out at this point is. I'm sure some of it at some point is true, but it comes down to the fact that ACMAC and NRA were intertwined so completely that ACMAC was sucking them dry with money, and they figured out that they could bribe the NRA executives with their own members' money. And it just started to spiral out of control. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. And now they're both just slinging mud and trying to present their extreme versions of the story. And yes, it's propaganda is what it is. That's all we're seeing from both sides right now is propaganda.
True. And if you're listening to this for the first time and you don't understand exactly where the NRA is, you might be thinking that, oh my God, these guys just hate the NRA and they want to see it destroyed. Folks, that is absolutely not the case. It's terrible. I don't imagine any NRA member could simply just turn a blind eye and be okay with that. If you're telling me that what we're doing by calling for reformation is destroying the NRA, you're actually doing the opposite. You're literally ignoring everything that's going on that's detrimental to the NRA. And by ignoring that, you're just allowing it to be perpetual and habitual. And so what happens? I mean, if the car's driving off the cliff, do you not speak up and say, wait, the car's driving off the cliff, guys, we got to do something, right? Or do you just say, oh no, you're trying to destroy the car? Like, no, the car's going off the cliff. Stop. I mean, okay, maybe that's a bad analogy. I don't know, but here's Here's you might think that, oh, it's just these two guys. Well, guess what? We had another NRA board of director resign on Friday. Dan Boren. Anthony, what do you know about Dan Boren?
All right, so this is interesting. You know what? I didn't pull this up. Do you have a copy of his resignation letter?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so he was calling for, it's right there. He was calling for more transparency, more, here it is. So he says, I hereby resign effective immediately, blah, blah, blah. I've had the honor and privilege of advocating for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is more important than any one person or any organization. I will remain a faithful voice in its support. It is my hope that the NRA will face its mounting troubles with honesty and transparency, and through those efforts will regain the trust of past and present NRA members, as well as the American public who are watching these events unfold. I'm hopeful that the NRA can once again become a constructive voice for gun owners and the men and women who enjoy the outdoors. So his resignation letter is actually, it's fairly neutral in tone. What we do know from a little bit of behind the scenes information is that Dan Boren originally tried to mediate the situation between the NRA and ACMAC. He was originally, I don't know all the specifics, but he was a mediator or negotiator or attempting to do so. And based on what happened to him, which we'll get to in a second, involving Tom King, we have to assume that he was on the side of reform and that he was on the side of trying to fix the issues in the NRA. So perhaps he took some of ACMAC's arguments. Now here we can go into the Tom King ethics complaint. This is very interesting. Open this up here. This is there's a great article from John Richardson, and we can link that. Basically, Tom King filed an ethics complaint against Dan Boren, and there was a quote here from Tom King. It says, I believe this, yes, from Tom King. He says, Mr. Boren resigned in the face of an ethics complaint which I filed that cites troubling communications and serious allegations linking him to suspected extortion against the NRA and billing fraud by the NRA's former vendor, Ackerman McQueen. NRA board member Tom King told Newsweek in a written statement, under these circumstances, this news is not surprising. Now, here we go. Here's the spin, right? So we have, again, we have behind the scenes information that Boren was involved in trying to mediate the issues. He was trying to solve things. Here we have Tom King, a hardcore old guard LaPierre loyalist, coming out with his spin, with his propaganda, immediately trying to say Mr. Boren puts in here troubling communications, serious allegations, suspected extortion, and tries his best to completely trash this guy. I think that is extremely telling.
Now, last week I told you my thoughts on Tom King. I think the guy is a walking soup sandwich. Okay? I have very little respect for him because he threatened me with legal action when I was merely asking questions into the improprieties and ridiculous spending. $274,000 in clothing that Wayne LaPierre bought with an ACMAC American Express card. So he wasn't even paying for it out of his own pocket. And I wouldn't mind if he paid for it out of his own pocket. That's the problem. It's embezzlement. He was embezzling money, it looks like. So this would be interesting. This would be a way for them to vindicate themselves. If Boren was actually, trying to get some billing fraud, why not release that? Why not show that? It's perplexing to me. Like I said, I don't have a high opinion of Tom King in any shape, form, or fashion, so I'm already kind of jaded in that, and I could be wrong. I'll be the first to admit that. Now let's look at Dan Boren just a little bit more. Dan Boren, if I can find it, from his Wikipedia. from his Wikipedia, apparently he is a Democrat. Well, I say a Democrat. He ran and was elected in the state of Oklahoma as a Democrat. Now that's interesting, because I don't know if you've looked at the politics in Oklahoma, but it's red. It's like blazing red. You know what I mean? And there's so little blue out there. I mean, it doesn't even look like a darker shade of red. It's just freaking red. So he was elected as a congressman, as a representative from the state of Oklahoma as a Democrat. And there's very, 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 very few and far between Democrats in the state of Oklahoma. Now, funny enough, apparently he has some association with the Shawnee tribe and the Chickasaw tribe, I guess. And he lives in Muskogee, Oklahoma. That ought to tell you something. I mean, so I don't care if he's, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, or whatever, but this guy is a gun lover. There's no doubt about it. Of course, he was elected to the NRA, elected by the voting membership of the NRA. But the Chickasaw Nation was one of, 2 or 3 companies that Ackerman McQueen actually represented. Let's go to their website real fast. Ackerman McQueen. It's weird. I don't know what they're doing here. Yeah. Oh, so Angus McQueen passed away in July. Of course, they've got a tribute to him. Every brand must be its own media company. The best ones own the narrative. Hey, buddy, they're good. Where is it at? Where we can find? Oh no, where they work for. Team insights, clients. Let's look at clients. Okay, clients. Oh, look, Colion Noir, National Rifle Association. There's one of the 3 lawsuits that the NRA has filed against Ackerman McQueen has to do with the NRA's logo and image. Well, Colion Noir was actually an Ackerman McQueen employee. Chickasaw Nation, the Ackerman McQueen company advertising agency does work for the Chickasaw Nation, which is also what Dan Bourne apparently is involved in, and perhaps why he was mediating between the NRA and Ackerman McQueen before it just exploded into a nuclear mushroom cloud. Okay. Either way, regardless of all that, that makes 8 board of directors who have resigned since April. Oh, buddy. 8. What do you think, Anthony?
It's not the last one. We'll see more.
Hey, let's take a question. Let's take a question real fast. Neil says, the board of directors, if they move to expose the NRA, will be sued, and the NRA will revoke their litigation process, just like Oliver North.
Yep. They'll revoke their litigation protection. Absolutely.
Protection. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, precisely. And yeah, that's why we're seeing all of the board of directors be very quiet right now, exceptionally quiet. And so we didn't even know that Dan Boren was, mediating until this broke out, and then the rumors started to kind of fly around. It's weird. Oh, Mr. Cousin from YouTube says, I think Boren's father was a congressman and also president of a university. I believe that was the University of Oklahoma for a while. And yes, he was a congressman as well. So Dan Boren was following in the footsteps of his father.
It's interesting. Dan Boren, if you look at his voting record, he actually voted against Democrats a number of times. He was definitely a bit of a swing vote, which makes sense where he came from and why he kept getting elected. But he was actually very popular. He got elected by very large margins.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, man. I mean, he was one of 2 former congressmen that were on the NRA board of directors. Yeah, that is interesting.
So here's my next question, and you were wondering about this too. Tom King says he filed an ethics complaint. Who do you file that with? What is he even talking about? Does he mean with the NRA?
That's a great question. Absolutely. And let's take it a step further. So if Oliver North is this really big bad guy, right, who is trying to overthrow the NRA, and they've got a lawsuit against him, why didn't they file a complaint against him and remove him from the board of directors? Oliver North is still on the NRA board of directors. Okay.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, so there's something really wrong with that picture. Why are you going to attack Dan Boren, which previously we had no clue that he was, had any improprieties. And of course, Oliver North had already resigned and said, all this bad stuff. And he's still on the board of directors. That doesn't look now. And let's take it a step further. In fact, you could also go in and say, like Colonel West, Alan West is still on the board of directors. And he was the first board of directors to actually call for Wayne LaPierre's resignation. And so he's still there. So, but anyway, if Tom King filed an ethics complaint, can I file an ethics complaint against him for threatening legal action against me when I was asking him a question?
Possibly. We should look into it.
I absolutely want to. Now, okay, and take that with a grain of salt, because the New York State Pistol and Rifle Association, they're headed to the Supreme Court. The opening arguments are going to be December 2nd, and I'm pulling for that case, man. It's going to SCOTUS, right? And it would set a massive precedent if they win in that particular case. So I'm pulling for him. But the president of New York State Pistol and Rifle Association, Tom King, man, he's just like, he's walking around doing whatever he wants. Why didn't the president of the NRA, Carolyn Meadows, file an ethics complaint? Why did First President Charles Cotton not file an ethics complaint? Why didn't Second Vice President Willis Lee not file an ethics complaint? Who does Tom King think he is? Is he running the NRA now? Is that what it is?
Dude, Tom King, that guy. All right, and if you look back at the voting numbers for the ballots, Tom King was not elected by very much. He was way down the list. Yeah, I'd love to see that guy get kicked out. Speaking of which, we do have, I believe, the correct list of individuals being put on the ballot. So you guys will see a voter guide for the NRA coming out soon. We will have that available. We're going to do a little bit of research on a lot of the candidates. Some of them are obviously no votes. Some of them we got to do some research on, but we will be putting out a voting guide for the NRA Board of Directors fairly soon. Expect to see that within the next couple of weeks. And I know a lot of people are asking about that and interested in it. So that will be coming out.
Absolutely. And the other side of that coin is, who can vote? Who can vote for these directors? Anthony, can you vote?
I can, yes.
Why?
Yeah, we'll just go over this real quick in case you're new. You have to be a voting member of the NRA, which means you're a lifetime or higher, or you have been an annual member for 5 consecutive years or more. They must be consecutive. You cannot have been a member for 4 years, let it lapse for a year, and then been a member for 4 more years. They have to be 5 consecutive years. And you can call the NRA membership hotline. I would have to find that number. I know you can just search for it and find it.
It's actually on your card, your member card.
Yes, it is on your member card, and they will tell you as well if you're not certain. But yeah, there's that. What's next, Ron?
Well, man, let's have some fun. Let's talk about the 2A rally that we attended yesterday in Washington, D.C. Holy smokes, man. Did you ever get the Domino's pizza that you ordered?
Okay, so I made the mistake of attempting to order a Domino's pizza in Washington, D.C. Despite the fact that my hotel was surrounded by no less than 3 Domino's pizza locations within a 2-mile radius, I could not actually get any pizza. I tried calling one place. They said call another place. I called that place. An hour and a half later, their driver calls me, says he is on the wrong side of my street and cannot come to my hotel. It was a nightmare. So if you ever go there, do not order Domino's pizza.
Well, it was even more hilarious because we gave up. We're like, okay, the pizza's not coming, and he's like, no, it's coming. I'm calling it. I'm on the phone. He spent 20 minutes on the phone with the manager. 20 minutes. Oh my gosh, that was funny. So we went to the hotel bar. We were staying at the Holiday Inn. You may have seen it if you check out our Facebook page. So while we were there, ran into Tim from Military Arms Channel. Oh man, yeah, and Derek Poole who does a lot of training and instruction with Rob Pincus. He was joining us. That guy is so fun.
Yeah,
Oh my
I
God.
really want to take a class with Derek Poole. He is hilarious, and I guarantee him and Rob would be an awesome time. It would be great instruction, and I would probably laugh my ass off half the class.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. Yeah, they're amazing folks, and you know, it was really cool to see Tim from Military Arms Channel, you know, just hanging out with folks. And of course, the next morning we got up and we walked over to the Capitol. Yesterday morning. So we get over there, and holy smokes, ran into Josh Prince first and foremost. That
Yep.
guy is awesome.
Dude, he's a little bit different in person than I would have thought, and I like him a lot more now. He's very, very it's the right word, very down to earth, very cool dude. He does such amazing work for the Second Amendment, and just to get to meet him in person was awesome. Great guy.
Yeah. So who else did you meet, Anthony? You were backstage because you're, you know, Mr. Big Time Speaker. I was
Yeah.
with the pores, front and center. I was enjoying my time, obviously hanging out with loads of folks. Maybe you were there, but you had more of an inside, like the speakers area. So what were some of the dudes you were hanging out with?
I did get to meet a lot of people back there. One thing that struck me, so a lot of people have kind of talked some smack about Hickok 45. Kind of talked some smack about him and his views with the NRA and just some other things in general. Honestly, after talking to the guy a little bit and seeing him interact with people, I like him a lot more now. And then yeah, like Tim, like you were talking about, I actually met some people back there that were sponsors that I can't talk about, but because all the sponsors for this thing were anonymous.
Yeah,
I want
completely
to tell
anonymous.
you some awesome people stepped up to the plate and put in their own money on this thing. It's not big corporations. It wasn't like an individual celebrity. I got to meet some of them and really, really cool people. God, and my favorite. You want to talk about some of the speeches for the night? Man, Maj's speech.
Maj Toure, dude. If you haven't seen that
Maj
speech,
Touré's
you got to
speech.
go watch it. Yes.
He laid down the line, and it was just fantastic. You should go watch his speech. It's very, very real about what's going on, what we're facing, the situation that we're in, and the line between the meme lords and what actually needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, man. He was upfront and real, and yeah. And of course, Maj is also running for a political office, and I believe it's the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes,
Yeah,
he is. Yeah.
yeah. What a cool dude.
It's like a city council or something, I think, for Philadelphia.
Yeah, for Philly. Okay. Yeah. How about Kevin Dixie, man? Did you hear his speech?
Yes.
KD.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, man. So he would have the crowd. He explained that, essentially gun control is a lie, right? Yeah. I mean, the bad guys are always going to have guns. And so, of course, the only persons who are giving up their guns are the people following the law. And so it's in vain, because it's in an effort to keep people safe. It's under the guise of safety. In reality, it puts people in more in danger because, well, you're removing firearms. And so he explained it like just real down to earth, and then in a very exceptional way, and then had the crowd, scream lie. He would say, gun control is a, and just everybody like would scream, lie. And oh, buddy, it was just a massive wall of sound. It was so much of a wall of sound that I remember like screaming lie, and then it got quiet just afterwards, and then you could hear the reverberation of the sound hitting the Capitol and coming back at us.
It was very loud. Yeah, there was a number of times that happened, and the crowd was so loud, like you could hear it echo off the Capitol and head towards the Washington Monument. It was really cool.
Oh my gosh. And you mentioned that the sponsors were anonymous. Buddy, that's the first time in my lifetime that I have seen a pure, unadulterated example of people expressing their love for the Second Amendment and freedom. I mean, generally you have, companies that will sponsor or try to I don't know, posture themselves as being so awesome and whatnot for a cause and blah blah blah. This didn't have any of that. There were no banners. There was no like Springfield Armory banners or anything like that. Now, granted, I mean, like folks like the Brownells crew showed up, and USCCA, they were throwing out shirts and stuff. And of course we were there. Like I was handing out some of our literature and trying to get signatures for a term limit petition that we have for the NRA board of directors. But dude, it literally was merely people showing up because they love the Second Amendment, and that was freaking awesome. I've never seen that before.
So this rally, for a few reasons, was it was unprecedented. The range of people that showed up to speak, there was everybody on the political spectrum. There were Democrats, which we'll get to in a sec. There was an incredible Democrat that got up there and spoke. We'll talk about him in a sec. Libertarians, hardcore Republicans, and in the crowd, it was the same gamut. We saw all the way on the right, super hardcore conservatives, all the way on the left from the socialist rifle something. And there was another from the liberal gun owners subreddit. There was a liberal gun club, I know was there. It was the entire spectrum, regardless of how we may think about other political topics, because believe me, I've got plenty of political opinions. If you want to sit down with a beer, I will talk your head off for hours about them. But when it comes down to the Second Amendment, what we need to do to save it and to fix it, there's really only one goal, one way to go, one road, and it involves us getting involved, putting those things aside, us all getting involved and working together, which a lot of the time is what we see from the other side. We see the gun grabbers as it were. We see them infighting constantly, but they will then put it aside, show up in the streets, and do their job to try to take us down. And that's one of their greatest strengths, is their ability to come together like that. And it's something that we need to realize in our community as well. And that was a big focus of this rally, was to get that kind of grassroots thing going. And it was marvelous. It was fantastic. It worked perfectly. And now we'll tell you a little bit about that Democrat that showed up. This was very interesting. None of us knew ahead of time this guy was going to be there, because the blowback, there could have been a lot of blowback on this one. It could have backfired terribly. It did not. Big kudos to Rob for setting this up, Rob Pincus. A guy named Dan Gross came and talked. He was not the most recent president, but I think the previous president of the Brady campaign. So I'm sure you all know who the Brady campaign are. They're one of the biggest anti-gunners in the country. And Dan Gross, former president of them, showed up, talked to us, and I'm sure that speech is available online. We've got to share it. Not promising we might talk to this guy on a future podcast, because his idea, it's very interesting to talk to him. He showed up and said, hey, I actually completely not like 100% agree with you guys, but I believe this is a fundamental right. I believe it should be protected, and what the Brady campaign is doing is wrong. And it was a really good speech. It was a really, really great speech, and I'm really glad he came.
Yeah, that one blew me out of the water. It really did. Because I'm like, wait. Brady's here, and he's going to talk to us about the Second Amendment? Like, oh man, I was all sorts of skeptical, but just listening to him speak, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's had a massive change of heart.
Yeah, no, it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
So I would like to get him on the podcast and talk to him about that and really get into it. See, we have it up here. There was an interview done that's posted here on AmmoLand, which is a really good interview. I actually hadn't even seen that yet. I'm going to go read that. Yep. I would like to get him live and talk a little bit about it, because that's very, very interesting, and finding out what causes people to actually switch their views like that, and furthermore to admit they switch their views, because that's part of it, is good strategic information that we need to learn being on this side. You know what I mean? Maybe we can do that in the future.
So I'll tell you somebody that similarly shocked me, and I was super happy about. So Top Shot. I don't know if you're aware of that show. It's been off the air for a while, but it was a really awesome shooting competition show, TV show. Top Shot. Chris Chen. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of him real fast for you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool to see him get up there on the stage.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so he several years back after Top Shot, he came out as a gay man. He came out of the closet. He'd been a competition shooter. He had won Top Shot, won one of the dang seasons, right? I mean, he's freaking awesome. And so he came out as a gay guy. And yesterday he spoke there. And so I'm thinking, ooh, this might not end well, I mean, because generally speaking, our demographic, or at least the demographic of the NRA, has been very ridiculously religiously conservative, with regards to like Christianity and whatnot, which generally just does not accept homosexuals or any LGBTQ whatever. Now, by the way, and let me preface this, I'm a Christian. Okay, so I get that. I totally do. On the other hand, the right of the people to keep and bear arms has no relevance to any political person, group, orientation. I don't care. It's the right of the people. I don't care if you identify as an attack helicopter on Sundays in Sudan. You have the right to keep and bear arms in the United States if you're a citizen. Of course, a law-abiding, non-prohibited person, citizen here in the United States. So him speaking and everybody there being like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. Man, it warmed my heart because there was nobody that was calling him out. There was nobody that was upset. I'm like, oh, these people get it. These people understand what the Second Amendment is. It's the right of the people, not the right of the NRA members, not the right of the GOA members, not the right of the FPC members, not the right of the homosexual, blah, blah, blah. It's just the people. And man, good Lord Almighty, that made me so freaking happy. It really did.
Yeah, it completely 100% destroyed that stereotype that we often see used against us. And it's the stereotype being that all gun owners are sorry, there's some noise in the background.
Angry toddlers.
No, he's actually laughing. There's this stereotype that a lot of gun owners are very, very conservative. They hate LGBT people, they're old fat white guys, right? And it completely, utterly destroyed that stereotype.
Absolutely destroyed. I loved it. And ironically enough, we had one protester there, which I found out Mr. Boomstick. If you go to on Facebook, Mr. Boomstick's page, his Facebook page, he was actually the guy that was assaulted by a protester. And I saw it happen. I was center stage later on, or front and center, trying to get a video of Anthony, right? You can see that video. But sure enough, Mr. Boomstick was assaulted by a guy that was screaming that, we were killing kids and we're Nazis. And like, wait, we hate Nazis and we want to save kids.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny video, and I noticed this when I was watching it. If you watch the video, once the guy starts to walk away, standing there in his awesome suit is Derek Poole, who just looks, I just give me an excuse. Come on.
Yeah, and he's so cool, calm, and collected, but you could tell like he could just like barely turn around, grab the dude's head, and go squish.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah, he immediately got chased over the wall by the awesome guys from Patriot Picket. They came out to help us with security and just general crowd control. They did a great job. You got the video pulled up there.
I've got the video, but we'll let everybody else go to Mr. Boomstick's page and watch it.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
It's a good video.
It's hilarious. Hey, let's go to the comments real fast. So Cousin says, or he asks on our YouTube channel, he says, how many people attended?
I'm not a good crowd estimator, man. I've seen people with wildly differing estimates. If I had to say at its peak was 2,000, 2,500-ish. I personally think.
Now, see,
Maybe
I
I'm wrong.
disagree. I disagree. My opinion, right, being in the crowd is over 3,000.
You
And
think so?
the reason I say that is because Michael Decker was there. He's one of our friends that came out to the NRA fall board meeting with us. He was there. I never saw him. Okay. So him, Charlie Chambers, one of our friends also who attended the fall board meeting, he was there. Never saw him. I never got a chance to shake Hickok 45's hand or John. John's like freaking, they're both like giants, right? And I'm dude, I could spot him out of a crowd. And after it was over, I didn't see him because there even after it ended, there were so many people there. Matt LaRosier with Firearms Policy Coalition, I've been in contact with him, and he spoke, of course, spoke really well. I loved it. I was cheering for him the whole time, and I told him I was going to go give him a freaking big bear hug because I love the work that he's doing. So I didn't get the chance because I couldn't find him. There were so many people I could not find. That tells me that there were a lot of people there because generally I'm walking around a lot and there's just so many faces and so many heads that so I say over 3,000.
Yeah, it very well could be. That's what a lot of other people have said is 3,000. There were a lot of people lining the lawn as well, kind of sitting up on the there. If you've never seen the Capitol West lawn, it's a big giant lawn, and then there's like a little stone wall kind of surrounding it that doesn't really have any entrances or exits. It's really kind of weird. So they put stairs over it, but people were lining this whole lawn wall all the way around too. I mean, there was just people everywhere around the area. So it very well could have been. There was it was one heck of a crowd. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. A couple other comments. Mr. Doobie Lou, Boogaloo. Sorry, Boogaloo was a funny word in chant yesterday. So Doobie Lou says, thank you very much. That information is greatly appreciated. Hey, thank you for watching, man. You're literally one of the dozens. Thank you,
dude. Okay, highlight of the entire thing. Find Jeff Knox's speech at the end. He says Boogaloo.
That's right.
I laughed so friggin' hard, man.
Yeah,
Jeff Knox. Jeff Knox he's an older guy. He's got to be getting close to 60. And he is very literally gun rights royalty. He's an awesome dude. I was really glad to get to meet him and talk to him. And just for him to say Boogaloo, he's like really straight laced. He's always in a suit, looks very nice, very professional, and it was hilarious. I'm sorry, but it was funny.
Yeah, he has the personality of a pastor's kid who is currently enrolled in a seminary school, right? I mean, just that very straight-laced, very professional, very, very friendly guy. And hearing him say Boogaloo was, dude, it was.
I should have ended my speech with Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I thought about it way afterwards. I'm like, oh, dude, that would have been great.
So that would have been hilarious. Jameson says, agreed, Ron. Chris's speech was awesome. He showed that the 2A is for everyone and the gun culture 2.0 is on the same page. Now that's a big one too, right? And we talked about this, gun culture 1.0 being just, I mean, they're in their own niche and they're really not getting out. Whereas gun culture 2.0 is just the opposite. Yeah, that's a great observation. Ozzy says that C4 Defense streamed it live. So I was standing right beside the Breitbart guys who were streaming it live, and we shared that on our Facebook page. And I'm sure you can go see it. I know Iraq Veteran 8888, he came into the crowd just a little bit away from me. He was videoing everything. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot of videos on his Facebook about it. I mean, it's big. Yeah. Oh,
it's C4 one of the companies that does the integrated training?
I believe so.
I think so.
I'm not terribly familiar with them. Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to talk to Todd Fossey, unfortunately, who runs Integrated Defense Solutions, I think, Integrated Defense Training.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting concept. Sorry, totally a sidebar. Where you integrate grappling, and I'm really into jiu-jitsu. I train jiu-jitsu a lot. I love it. Where you integrate grappling with firearms, because a lot of the time you're very, very close when these instances happen. And training, it's a spectrum. It's a toolbox. Like, you need to have a lot of things in that toolbox. It's a super cool concept. I really want Todd to come and do a class here. Okay, sorry. fanboying. Continue, Ron.
Oh, buddy, I was a total fanboy. Hey, no, you carry on, man. So Chris Osborne, great buddy of mine, he says that Dan's speech was measured, but seemed very well received. Now he's referring to which Dan was that? The Dan that was talking about the suicides?
No, he was talking about Dan Gross.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
What was the
okay,
name
so
of the suicide?
that was Michael Sedini. We can talk about him for a sec. He's with Walk the Talk America.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, and it's one of the organizations Rob is associated with as well. I think Walk the Talk America does great work. I support the hell out of them. They confront a difficult reality, and that is that firearms are used for a lot of suicides. I'm sure everybody's heard the gun death statistics every year, where the gun grabbers don't point out that half of those are suicides.
It's over 60%. So yeah,
yes.
Well over half.
Yeah, and it's something that's very difficult to talk about in this community because what happened to Michael is the reason why. He was heckled when he brought this up. He was heckled and somebody yelled, "You're making it about the guns," which he wasn't really, but this is something we need to talk about. It's a very unfortunate thing, and there's some sort of initiative they have sponsored. Honestly, I'm not 100% up to date with this. Maybe somebody else who is could talk about it. We can have Rob talk about it on the next podcast, actually, where if somebody is having some sort of mental health scenario, they don't think they're safe around their own firearms, they can get somebody else to hold them for them. I don't know if that's an FFL or if it's a trusted person.
Yeah. And that's all from Genevieve, who is from the Gun Collective. John Patton with the Gun Collective. He dates Genevieve, and so she's going in and trying to establish this. So if I'm having a bad time, or if I've got a family member that's having a really bad time, and I don't want any firearms in my house, I mean then you start breaking the law by having transfers go through to your buddies or something like that, illegal transfers. So if you want to keep it legal and you want to get some firearms out of your house and you don't want to spend $1 million doing it, well, guess what? She's coming up with a way to work with gun shops, these federal firearms licensed dealers, FFLs, so that you can host those guns there until everything blows over and you don't have to worry about red flags, coming in and taking your stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's a brilliant freaking idea. An excellent solution to a terrible situation.
Yeah, Michael wasn't the best speaker ever, but what he does, I think it's good and important work in the community, and it's something that we should talk about and we should get out there. And I believe they just got picked up by all Bass Pro Shops, if I'm not mistaken. They got their literature and all of them. Was that them or
no?
A different
that was a Kids Safe Foundation.
Oh, that was Kids Safe Foundation.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and I wish the NRA would have picked up the slack there. How about having Eddie Eagle at every freaking Cabela's and Bass Pro and whatnot? No, there's had to be a new one, a new entity come up to solve that issue of training kids.
That Eddie Eagle costume is dead in some closet somewhere, man.
Oh man,
it's covered in dust. They ain't never going to use that thing. It was a cool program, and they should have done it. But you know what? Other people are stepping up to the plate. They're taking care of it, and that's something that was brought up a few times. It's like, well, what if the NRA does collapse? Well, you know what? Somebody else, and there's already people working on this. I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say who's involved. This is being worked on to make sure if this thing does collapse, the gun community will pick up the slack. We will come together. We will continue to kick ass and save the 2A without them.
Well, and that was a big topic of conversation at the the gun rights policy conference in September. Now, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that we can reform the NRA. Jameson asks, so was there any present NRA board of director members there? Willis Lee? Marion Hammer. It's funny you say that because Willis Lee flies all over creation for the NRA. I mean, go look at his Facebook page. He's all over. He's always saying that we're Bloomberg operators or something stupid, absolutely ridiculous like that. I mean, just the man's words speak for themselves. So go over there and check out his Facebook page. But no, Willis Lee was nowhere to be seen. Marion Hammer, I mean, you would have been able to see her from a mile away in that red blazer that she always wears. She was not there. The only person affiliated with the NRA that was there that I'm aware of was Anthony Calandro. Yeah, board of directors. And I got to tell you, I love the guy. He gave a great speech, and you should go listen to that speech. I think he really hit it on the head. What did you think, Anthony?
So yeah, he was there. He's the only present BOD member that I recognized that I knew that was there. I mean, maybe somebody else in the audience, I don't know. He's the only one that came up to me and I talked and knew was there. There was obviously past BOD member Tim Knight was there who gave a speech, and and Frank Tate, who is on the ballot for this next one to get onto the BOD, was there as well. Anthony Calandro, his speech was awesome. As soon as he came off the stage, I shook his hand. I'm like, dude, that was badass. It was really good. We got a little bit of a chance to talk. He is a good guy. I don't agree 100% with him on the state of the NRA. I'm not really going to talk a whole lot about that. I don't agree 100% with him. However, I am personally going to vote for the guy to get him back on the BOD. He's a good dude. If you ever get the chance to talk to him, hopefully at this next board meeting here in January, you should come. We'll, of course, have information as we get closer. It'll probably be in Virginia again. There we go. January 11th, 2020. And
Tyson's
get a chance
Corner.
Tyson's Corner. Get a chance to meet him. Not only is he a pretty legit dude, he's also really, really funny.
Oh man, I seriously want to hang out with him, and furthermore, I want to shoot with the guy. And that's one of my measures for folks in the firearms industry. If you look like a soup sandwich and you probably are going to be a soup sandwich on the range, I don't think I want to shoot with you. Okay.
Right.
Joel Friedman, who called us out previously, who just copied and pasted Marion Hammer's letter, calling us out. I don't know if you've seen the way that he holds a handgun, but I don't.
My God. Can you get that picture?
Oh,
it's terrifying.
Yeah. Yes,
Like
I will.
you could tell this guy does not train. He's shot a couple of guns in his life, but he doesn't train. It's a terrifying picture. I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay. So, and let me go back a little bit. It'll take me just a second to bring this up. So how do you hold a handgun? Right. I mean, what do you say, Anthony? How do you personally hold a handgun?
Personally, I use the 2 thumbs forward hold. That's how I like it.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people nowadays are going to that hold. I think that's pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah. So let's look at this real fast. And I'm I'm sorry.
You look for that. I'll keep riffing here for a little bit. You look for that photo.
Go for it.
As far as the rest of the 2A rally goes, there was a couple other speakers that were just amazing. We had 2 awesome ladies that spoke. I want to talk about real quick. And you know what? I do not remember her name. There was a lady from Venezuela that spoke.
Gabby Franco,
thank you, who talked about the things that happened in her country and how awesome it is to come here and have a Second Amendment. That is a speech worth listening to. She kind of teared up at the end, like she just was so passionate about it. And then another one was Carrie Sloan. She's really cool. She's really funny. She cracks me up. Carrie Sloan's speech was so she has a story to tell. She was and her group is called We the Female, by the way. Her group or her story is that she was abused terribly by an asshole of a husband, and she broke out of that, got away, and learned to defend herself. She learned how to use firearms, and she's come back with a vengeance, started an organization to get other women to that same place. And her speech was really it was really touching and a very good speech. That's Carrie Sloan. Should check that one out. Do you find that picture there, Ron? This is a hilarious picture.
I did. And okay, so Joel Friedman,
I don't know what's happening in that picture.
he was just elected by the board of directors to fill a vacancy on the executive committee.
Look at his rating. It's 1.8 out of 5. A whole bunch of trolls must have reviewed him.
No, that wasn't trolls. That was NRA members that were mad at him for
What?
calling
It was like
us.
legitimate reviews. Nice.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We should go and just read that sometime. But regardless, he is now on the executive committee, and the executive committee is stacked with guys that don't know what they're doing with firearms. I mentioned last week with Tom King, who doesn't know that a 80% hunk of aluminum or polymer, it's not a firearm, yet he calls it a firearm. So just having those disparities, not knowing what they're talking about, not knowing what they're doing, and obviously being very well, I don't know what this grip is. It looks like he's trying to go thumbs forward, okay, but then he's doing something like a teacup on the bottom, like
it's some sort of teacup mixed with old school slide bite.
Exactly.
Look at this. It's terrible. If you can't see this is on. If you're listening to the podcast, it's Joel Friedman's Facebook.
Hey, and honestly, this may be something else. Jameson Nethery puts it up in our comments. He says it looks like he's missing fingers. He may be, and if he is, I've got a great friend of mine who is.
It is. I feel like fingers.
A jerk. Well, if he is, you have to improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? And even this, I can tell you right now, just by looking at this particular grip, that he's going to be unable to mitigate the recoil impulse, and he's going to have a terrible follow-up shot. Now, if he's just shooting one shot at a time, like bang, 10 seconds later, bang, okay, he's going to readjust. He's going to be safe. He's going to keep the muzzle in a safe direction. He's going to keep the rounds on target, okay? If he's trying to shoot a bill drill, 6 shots as quickly as you can on a 7-yard target, those shots are going to look like a Coke can exploded and there was a part over here and a part over here. I mean, it's the shots will not be controlled. Okay. And all right. Sorry to be Mr. Instructor, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what I like doing. I like teaching and whatnot. I don't think Mr. Joel is missing any fingers, or at least when I saw him at the NRA Board of Directors meeting, I didn't get a chance to shake his hand, but I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. And if he is, very sorry, to try to give you any sort of disparity, but still, you need to go and shoot with Mike Medinsky. Mike Medinsky works for, or at least works occasionally with Kanaw's Tactical Group in Colorado Springs, and Mike was a Navy explosive ordnance disposal sailor who unfortunately lost most of his left hand. And you know what? He beats me in one of the last IDPA matches that I got to squad up with him. He beat me, so dude, you could be missing hands and shoot, exceptionally like competition well. Okay. This shows me though, this particular picture shows me that Joel he is not any sort of competitor. He doesn't take training seriously, which is, by the way, the NRA does a lot of training. I don't know if you know this, but the NRA is supposed to do a lot of firearms training, and that's kind of at its heart. And so if you're looking at that picture, the way that he's holding the pistol and whatnot from a defensive lens, right? Just the defensive lens, like the your life is going to end if you don't, do this right. He's got some work to do. And so that tells me that he doesn't take training seriously, which I don't know how many of the board of directors actually take training seriously. I know that Magpul CEO, Dwayne Liptick, Dwayne used to teach training, firearms techniques and whatnot on his business property. The guy was prior service Marines, and he made Magpul magazines, for crying out loud, right? So he's probably the only one that I know that shoots very competitively. Graham Hill, who is also on the executive committee, probably the only person on the executive committee that I would consider not a FUD. I use that term lightly because FUD that's stereotypical and it's not quite fair, but you get what I'm saying. Gun culture 1.0, right? Graham Hill is not gun culture 1.0. The dude competes 3-gun from a wheelchair. Freaking studly.
That's awesome.
I kid you not, dude. And when he was at the fall board meeting, I'm like, oh, I've got to shake his hand. yeah, so Graham Hill, man, Graham Hill should probably link up with Joel Friedman and get Joel Friedman squared away, okay? And especially on what we're trying to accomplish. We're not trying to tear down the NRA. We're trying to build it up. We're trying to make it accountable, which it's unaccountable. And we have term limit petitions. Anthony, what do you think? Term limit petitions.
Yeah, so that is live right now. If you've not been following too closely, our term limits petition is live. Due date being mailed back to us by December 2nd. This is the second petition that we're going to be putting before the board of directors. Our previous one, attendance, we were successful. We did get it before the board of directors. They weren't very happy about it and they kind of ignored it, but that's fine because we were successful and it happened. So this is the same thing. It's going to happen again. We're going to get it in front of them for that January meeting. And then after that, we're going to be moving on to the petitions that'll be getting onto the members ballot. It's a step-by-step, thoughtful approach. We've thought it out. So you may be wondering, well, why don't we just start a recall right now? There's like 18 reasons why. So I've put up an FAQ on our website. Go ahead and jump over to our website, savethe2a.org, and you can look through there. At our petition page, I've got an FAQ and a timeline, a little bit about our strategy on there, so you can see what's going on. You can download the petition there if you're a voting member of the NRA, and then you can mail it into us at our Denver address that is on there. Again, the deadline is December 2nd, so don't wait to get it done. You only got a little bit less than a month to get that mailed.
December 2nd, and we need to definitely put that out. There's been a couple people asking when we need him in by. December 2nd. December 2nd, December 2nd. Anthony, I think we've covered everything that we wanted to cover. Do you have anything to add?
I've got nothing other than, you know what, actually, I got one last thing. At this rally, I don't want to say surprised, but I was surprised. And honored that so many people afterwards came up to me, and a lot of them were already supporters of Save the Second. Some of them straight up knew us and loved us. Some of them were new. We introduced them to us there, and they loved what we were doing. The support that I got was tremendous, 100% positive. I didn't hear anything negative from anybody there. And there was a lot of NRA members. We saw a lot of NRA hats, coats, shirts. A lot of NRA was there. I did not hear one thing negative. And that sort of support, it's to say that it's humbling is it's humbling, it's honoring, and I love you all for it. And thank you very much for that support. And that's all I had, Ron. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. And for everybody that I got to link up with and hug, and not only that, but just the amount of people that were watching, just from online, commenting. Chris Osborne, by the way, he says Edgar is his FFL. And yeah, I met Edgar just before the start of the thing. I didn't even know he was speaking. I saw his shirt and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I recognize that. And he says like, yeah, I'm from Colorado. I'm like, wait, what? You're from Colorado? So hopefully I'm going to be able to do some shooting and I don't know, maybe some training with Edgar. I think that'd just be, it'd make me so happy. It really would. And this whole weekend made me so stinking happy. It was just like a freedom convention, man. And we don't see much of that. It's, yeah, and humbling, obviously. Holy smokes. Yeah, folks, I love you all to death. I really do. Thank you so much for watching. Before we go, I'm going to quote him again. This is the quote from John F. Kennedy. And this is kind of the mindset that I have, the mindset going in to try to reform the NRA. To state the facts, frankly, is not to despair the future nor indict the past. The prudent heir takes careful inventory of his legacies and gives a faithful accounting to those of whom he owes an obligation of trust. Thank you very much for listening. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Of course, our website is where you can find more information. It's still the same, although it looks way better. SaveThe2a.org. That's SaveThe2a.org. Nick Dooley is the voice behind the introduction. He's awesome. I love him to death. He's out of South Dakota. He has an FFL in South Dakota, Dooley Defense in Pierre, South Dakota. All of us at Save the Second are volunteers. A special thanks to those of you who have believed in what we're doing, why we're doing it, and have donated. If you've donated, holy smokes, I mean, you're making these petitions and stuff possible. We gave out literature at the Save the 2A rally about Save the Second and what we hope to accomplish, and it's thanks to those donations, and it's just ridiculously humbling, amazing. I love you so much for doing so and for believing in us and for being involved. By God, thank you for being involved. The 76 and 76 is still going on. We're on day 11 now, day 11 of 76 and 76. Contact your NRA board of directors. Tell them your thoughts be heard in your organization. And by God, we will see you again next week. Amen. So long. Have a good Sunday afternoon.